Hello there and welcome to another installment of Gender Mender with me, Darren DOG. Nice to have you back with us. Today we are going to have a look at the gender of communication. Oh, what is this? Well, this is about how we already have the perfect language for understanding the gender roles around us, and when someone is in the masculine and when someone is in the feminine. And because we are so gender confused around the subject of the body and sexuality as a species, and I must say, people, this really has to be said quite passionately, you really can trust your body when you look down, you know. It is only because education abstracts you from physical reality for most people at an age before the rational, i.e. before 7. If you have been abstracted into school before 7, then it's quite likely your mind is an abstracted entity and isn't really based on the environment, and people like you may be confused as to whether you can trust your body when you look down as to see whether you're a man or a woman. I have to say, you can trust your body. Look down. The information's there. Anyway, the point is, because we are so confused as a species at that very basic biological level, it means that when we look at the higher correspondences of gender, because gender does indeed exist at every level of manifestation, because it is indeed the energy of transmission and reception. And transmission and reception happens in every genuine interaction that isn't a cockfight, basically. Let me elaborate on that. So, most people don't know that communication itself is a gender subject. It's actually pure gender. And that's why we talk about being able to conceive of an idea. It's a conception, people, to have a new thought. And a conception, to conceive, is the product of gender. Okay? And it requires transmission and reception. It requires masculine and feminine. Without that, conception cannot take place, which means without that, communication itself isn't taking place. And by understanding the genders of communication, you can understand whether you're actually communicating or not. And I'll tell you what, in many instances there's not much communication taking place these days. So let me elaborate. When you look at a young boy or girl, what is the difference between them? What's the key difference, the key observable difference between a prepubescent boy or girl? What is the difference? This isn't rocket science. They've all got arms and legs. They've got faces and eyeballs and noses and mouths and nipples. The one difference is there seems to be something pointing out of these little boys. They've got this little thing that points out. What's that? Well, this is the very thing that lets us know what's going on in our communication. Because whoever is making a point, which is the person who is temporarily taking a little bit of charge, if you remember our electromagnetic video, but whoever is making the point is in the male role. They're in the masculine. They've got a point to make. It's come out of nowhere. They were flaccid and accepting a moment ago, and now they've got a point to make. They're about to enter into the masculine. Now, if conception is to take place, if you are able to receive the point, for conception to take place, you can't be sitting waiting to make your own point. Okay? You must be open to receive that transmission, that point. If you have people sitting about waiting just to make their point, while a little voice is going on in their head just waiting for their time to make their point, that's not communication, people. That's presentation at best, mental masturbation at worst. And for many coffee tables I've sat around, I see a lot of mental masturbation going on and not real communication, not real transmission and reception. And actually we do indeed have a crisis of gender in the world and communication, because there's so many point makers out there that don't know how to stop to receive whether their points have been heard. Feminists, I'm looking at you. So, if you stop making points to look, you can see how much change has already happened. But you see, this applies in any situation. So you can watch in a conversation, the roles change. Who's got a point? In the male role, if we are to have conception here, everybody else must be in the feminine, which means they must be open to receive the point. And if, now we need to look at sex for a moment here, because the process of sex is exactly the same as the process of communication, which is, first of all, you have arousal. Is the person even interested in your point? How many people I know that skip out checking in whether anyone's interested? Oh my goodness me, it's unbelievable. Step 1 is arousal. Step 2 is coming into alignment. Okay, just like you do when you're trying to get into bed with somebody, whether you're a man or a woman, what will happen is you will have to come into alignment with them. Once you have alignment, you'll then have an adjustment that goes on with a bit of penetrating and withdrawing, penetrating and withdrawing, penetrating and withdrawing, which is all about how you make a point and wait. Make a point and wait to allow communication to take place, and then, if the alignment is good, you may plant the seed of your finest point into that well-prepared mind that you have worked hard to arouse and get interested and aligned with you, and then you may sit back and wait for that seed to grow until that person has their own conception from your communication, which doesn't necessarily mean they will repeat right back to you exactly your own understanding. It will mean they will hopefully arrive at their own understanding, and you can know beautifully that communication has taken place. But we have a language for what happens if you don't follow the process of arousal, alignment. Are they still open to receive? And the words for that are rape. Okay, there's so much mind rape going on at the minute. Mind rape of children in schools, people not interested in whether they're aroused and interested or not, or aligned or not. It's just mind rape going on. And then what we have in conversations is, because people are not checking in to make sure that the points are being well received, we have the other thing that can go wrong in the conception process. We have deformity. We have abortion of ideas. We have aborted concepts. We have these hideous deformities of what were perhaps beautiful points, but because the person didn't conceive with it, it's come out as this ugly behaviour. All because people didn't understand it was gender we're dealing with. So I have other videos on that go into much more depth of that sexual communication process. These little videos are all just little introductions to much bigger subjects, but on this particular one, if you do want to delve deeper, have a rake around my videos. You might find it somewhere. If not, you'll be able to get it on my website. But in the meantime, there is enough in here for you to realise and go out there and transform your communication skills in every single interaction you have. Because if somebody else is making a point, will you please stop and receive it? Unless it is so heinous and so bad that you need to take charge of the situation and compete your point against theirs. And if so, be aware you've got a cockfight going on, because you've got 2 point makers that are competing for the same time and space. And be aware that it is pure masculinity you're dealing with, whether you are a man or a woman. Okay, it's pure masculinity. I invite you to be careful with it, because it can cause harm. Okay? Tempering the masculine so you can achieve metal with it, so it is a useful edge for your points rather than something brittle and harmful, is one of the key points of being of achieving self-mastery, rather than being a spasming child. So if you don't want to be a spasming child your whole life, please take charge of your point making capacity and your ability to be open to receive to others. I hope this has been of use to you. Join me for another instalment of Gender Mender next time. Thank you. If you like this and want to have a bit more, you can always get in touch with me for a one-to-one or a couple session, or get me along to speak to your group or school or class. I'd be happy to delve deeply into these subjects beyond these little introductions that we cover in these videos. If you'd like to see more of these kind of videos coming along, please feel free to support me over on the Patreon page, and otherwise I wish you well on your journey to gender mastery.